the camp, but yeah.
Oh, no.
I now call to order the regular session meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs on Tuesday, September 24th, 2019 at 6:30. Roll call, please.
Mayor Alahouzes?
Here.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Here.
Commissioner Sieber,
Here.
Commissioner Carr?
Here.
Commissioner Donovan?
Here.
Tonight's invocation will be given by Reverend Smith from the Herman Missionary Baptist Church and the Fire Department Chaplain. If you please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we come giving thanks to you for such a beautiful day. We thank you for such a beautiful city. We thank you for our city leaders and city staff, and we ask your blessings upon them. We pray for our first responders, our police departments and fire department, that you may protect them as they perform their daily duties. We pray for the citizens of Tarpon Springs and all that come to visit here and all that pass through here. And we pray that you would bless this meeting tonight, every item that's on the agenda, for it's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
With liberty and justice
for all. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the BOC meeting. I'd like to announce that the agenda item on number 13 has been deferred to the next meeting on the October 8th. Thank you. And now we'll go to the public comments on the items that will not be discussed today. Father Howard, you have a comment?
Good evening. Some of you may not know who I am. I'm Father Athanasio Ceros. I'm the Dean of St. Nicholas Greek Orthodox Cathedral here in Tarpon Springs. And this coming Saturday, September 27th, in cooperation with a movement nationally to declare September 27th National First Responders Day, we are inviting all of the first responders here in Tarpon Springs and throughout Pinellas County to the Cathedral, 8 a.m. on this coming Friday, for the blessing of all first responders, and then a complimentary breakfast to show our appreciation and our love for all of our first responders. So we have sent an invitation to the city and by extension to the entire Board of Commissioners. We would love for you to be with us on Friday morning, 8 o'clock in the Cathedral on Pinellas Avenue, and then we'll go right next door after the blessing to enjoy a beautiful complimentary breakfast. My only request is that you let our office know how many people are coming, just so we can make sure we have enough batter for the pancake breakfast, because we're going to fill you guys with good heavy pancakes and syrup so you can enjoy the rest of your day. So very important to us to show our appreciation and offer God's blessings on those who keep us safe. And word out to the police department and the fire department and to EMS, etc., to even bring equipment. We'll bless trucks. We'll bless anything to help God protect you in the work that you do. So on behalf of all of us here in Tarpon Springs, I want to express our gratitude and appreciation for our first responders. Invite you all Friday morning for what we hope will be an annual blessing and breakfast.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Please come forward after Mr. Dalakis.
All in one.
Hello there.
Hi.
My name is Caroline, and I'm here tonight to find out about the possibility of
Would you
a-
please state your last name, your address for the record?
Absolutely. My name is Caroline Berkey. I live at 31 Cypress Drive in Palm Harbor. My family lives at 706 Lansdowne Court in Tarpon Springs.
Okay.
And I'm here tonight to find out about the possibility of having a public skate park in the city. If it's all right, I'd like to tell you a little bit about it and then just find out if there's anything I can do to help move that forward. So I was born and raised here, and I currently work off of Tarpon Ave just around the corner. I skate in skate parks a couple times a week, and lately I find myself driving 45 minutes to an hour in order to skate in Largo, St. Peter, Tampa area. I've noticed a gap in the availability of local skate parks, and I believe having the gap filled by the city of Tarpon would be mutually beneficial to residents here as well as to the local government. There is a saying that if your city doesn't have a skate park, that it is one. And if there's no park available, I think we've probably all seen that skateboarders will use what is available to them to skate. A designated public area would have multiple effects. Firstly, people of all ages would have a safe place to recreate in an enclosed area. Since the popular sport grew in the 70s, we've seen that a lot of families and fathers and sons and daughters are out skateboarding at the skate park as well. Secondly, a public skate park protects property. It deters skating in other areas like benches, steps, rails, curbs, commercial areas, parks, and protects the property that business owners own so that these skaters are elsewhere. It adds a location for the city of Tarpon and public residents to hold events. Fourthly, it promotes an active, healthy lifestyle. And fifth, a well-designed skate park can even provide an economic benefit. So I just wanted to share a couple numbers with you as well. There in Tarpon alone, over 3,200 people are students under the age of 18. In Tarpon, using the statistics that 2% of the entire population it identifies as a skateboarder, we can say that 258 students in Tarpon Springs today would be interested in having a skate park. If we can also agree that since Holiday and Palm Harbor don't have a skate park and would likely use our skate park as a central location, that number would increase to 1,063 students under the age of 18 that are interested in having a skate park as of today. For the first time, skateboarding will also premiere as an Olympic sport at the 2020 Tokyo Games, so I only expect that number to rise. What I'd like to do today is find out what I can do and what we can do as a community to show that there is a genuine interest in having a public skate park, and also just find out what an actionable step is that I can do so that we can have a serious discussion about that.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Wow. Peter Delacus, 514 Ashland Avenue. I'm glad she did speak first because it gave me some fodder to tie into what I wanted to speak about in the first place. I was here, the last time I was here, I spoke about Mears Mango and what's going on, and you need to start thinking about connect and distant. Now, this lady just gave you a little fodder for some vision that we had a long time ago. Mark, you remember we had put aside $500,000 for designs for a sports complex south of Diston or correction, south of MLK, which would be abutting that Mears Mango extension. Is that not correct?
Not exactly, but go ahead. It's not an answer.
Okay.
We've talked about it.
All right. The point is, years ago, and Paul probably has records still from the rec section, we had put forth a vision of a sports complex, fields and other things. And at one time, we talked about being able to put a pool there. We tried a pool out by the high school, it didn't work. We have property, acres of property out there. So I challenge this commission and you, Mr. Donovan, who said you donated your salary to the Youth League, and also to you, Mr. Terrapini, who donated his campaign funds, I believe, to the Little League. So the two of you and the rest of the board should speak with the rec department, speak with some of the other group departments, and see if we can't bring this forth back to the table. And bring it out to the public, have a workshop, have other interested groups participate, such that skateboarders, swimmers, whatever. And part of that vision, and Mark will remember, is we could hold tournaments that draw people here, fill the hotels, and people come and spend money at the restaurants. These are the economic drivers. So don't look at it like spending money on a park that's not going to get used. These are economic drivers. So take a look at it. Thank you. And thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? Here none. The first item on the agenda is the Charter Review presentation. It will be presented by Mr. Jim Colianos, the Chairman of Charter Review Commission.
Jim Colianis, Circle Drive, Tarpon Springs, Florida. Excuse me. Tonight I have for the board a short explanation of what we're offering you. I think by now you've gotten copies of what we started in June and just recently finished. But before I go into that, I need to introduce, I know they're not all here, but the committee that did this, a committee of 7. Dr. Carrie Root was the vice chairman. David Banther, David Bolton, Karen Gallagher, Mark Janeskis, and Costa Vaticiotis. They worked. I was on 3 or 4 of these committees. This was the most exciting committee for me because everything in the past had been quite mundane and went pretty easy. This group didn't let anything go by. We talked, we beat up, we hated each other for a week. We did everything possible to come to where we're at. We would not have been able to get there without Irene and Michelle. I got to tell you guys, if you don't pay them enough, you need to, because they ran a lot of interference. They gave us every possible thing we needed plus more. Mr. Trask, if I told you we didn't beat up Patrick Perez, I think you know better. We suffered this poor young attorney. We just beat him up constantly. He never gave in. He stuck to his guns, and without him, we would have never finished. He showed up the last couple of meetings. He showed up at every meeting. Don't misunderstand me. But the last 2 meetings, he was just as anxious as we were to finish, if not more so. And he hit everything right on the spot. He made it so easy, it was unbelievable. So if you'll thank him for us.
I will, thank you.
Ask him to forgive us because we really worked him over pretty bad. And I'm sure he told you about that. Tonight I'm going to give you a short rendition. There's 12 sections that We made some changes too. Some of you probably think we made too many changes to some sections. Others are very, very simple. To start with, Section 3, limitation of powers. Currently, the city charter requires a voter referendum if the city wishes to purchase, sell, exchange, convey, or lease real property in any amount greater than $250,000. It was unanimous with everybody from the city who came and spoke to us, and we asked their opinions. And it was unanimous on the board that times have changed enough that had to be raised. So basically, at this point, what we're proposing to you gives you a great deal of more flexibility to run the city and increases that amount to $500,000. What we bought for 5 years ago in a home for $250,000, you can't buy today. And you guys can't do what you need to do running the city under those circumstances. The next section, 8, Board of Commissioners composition and powers. Currently, I'm going to use the word CRC, that's Charter Revision Commission, that's us. We recommended amending Section 8. It enumerates your powers and your responsibilities and your duties that's currently represented in the charter. We're changing a little bit of that, okay? What we added to what you currently had is currently in the code or your comp plan. So there's no real big change except that now it's spelled out in a charter for you. So there's no question, because sometimes a code and a comp plan takes longer than 5 years to update and change, which you're all very much aware of. I think the last time it was looked at was in the early 80s. So we added some things in there, and I'm sure you've read them, and there's nothing in there that hurts the city. It gives you some areas a whole lot more understanding of what responsibilities and duties are. Next is Section 11, terms of office, qualifications, and the date of an annual election. In the past, every city election has been nonpartisan. Nobody gets up and talks about, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm an independent. It's never been spoken to in the charter. So what we did was put it in there to say that the city elections in Tarpon Springs are nonpartisan. So there won't be a question, because times are changing and everybody likes to challenge everything that's done. So we tried to cover that. It's a very simple, easy thing to understand, and I don't believe anybody in Tarpon would object to it. Section 13, interference with the administration. Currently, the charter prohibits the Board of Commissioners from directing, supervising city employees that are under the city manager's authority. But the charter doesn't address employees other than the charter officials, which are the city attorney, internal auditor, and the city clerk and collector. So what we're recommending is that the city charter, I'm laughing because you guys know what's coming, that the city charter to protect the Board of Commissioners from directing and supervising employees of the city. It's not in the charter, okay? Simple, easy thing. Section 14, internal auditor. The current city charter is silent as to the full-time role of an internal auditor and does not enumerate the duties of the internal auditor as past charters provided. We're recommending that the language in this section list the duties of the internal auditor and make clear that that position is a full-time employee of the city. We had some lengthy discussions, and I don't mind telling you that on 2 occasions I asked the board, let's put this off. We're never going to finish if we stay on this constantly. And we put it off 2 times and brought it up prior to finishing in the last couple of weeks. So it's good reading. It doesn't restrict the Board of Commissioners 1 iota. It still makes you in charge of an auditor as you are now. We just felt that it was extremely helpful. It would give an independent outlook to you as you look on your daily duties as elected officials as to where the city is. An internal city auditor who's a part of the staff that report only to the city commission. Can't be influenced that way, can't be threatened, can't be anything. My experience has been is that when the city commission determines someone's not doing their job, they'll get rid of them. In the past, the city auditor had great success. Section 17, city clerk and collector, and the acting city clerk and collector. This item is also listed under section 17, but we put it under section 16 as well, so that the city manager has full authority to hire, fire, and do everything they want, and he's a charter official. The city clerk's office is also a charter official, and we wanted to add in there that the city clerk in their office excuse me, can do the same thing, that they supervise their employees. They don't have to go to someone else and say, is it okay? As a charter official, they have that responsibility based on the fact that they report only to the Board of Commissioners. So we put that in there. That's under section 17, and they certainly deserve that possibility. Section 18, city attorney. This hasn't been a big problem in the past, but what we found was it was missing out of the charter. And the charter never specifically spoke to the city attorney having a representative at quasi-judicial meetings. It's extremely important that any quasi-judicial meetings that a legal attorney is there to advise the committee of lay people who are trying to make decisions that what they're saying and deciding on is legal and up to par. So we added that in there. It's not a problem now, but it needs to be in there. The residency requirement takes a little more, but not a lot. That's section 20. The city charter presently requires a city manager in limited positions to establish legal residency in the city and allows the Board of Commissioners to temporarily excuse that requirement up to 1 year unless the individual was hired prior to March 14th, 2000, the grandfather day. Because times have changed so much, and in order to be able to attract top-level people, qualified people to come to work for the city, you've got to be able to understand that they have problems. They bought a house in Trinity. They want to work in the city. They're the best of the lot. We found that 1 year time frame to be very restrictive. And talking to staff members, we found that hurts our attracting qualified people. So we're extending that with a lot of caveat, guys. I'm giving you the short thing here. We're extending that for up to 3 years, okay? It doesn't say that after 3 years that person can't come here. But once again, the Board of Commissioners make that decision, okay? If it goes beyond that, the Board of Commissioners can say yes or no, they come or stay. And the whole idea is, I hate to say this, I know you all understand it. You were elected to make all of those types of decisions, and those types of decisions that were left out of the charter, we tried to put in the charter. And that's where we came from with all of this. Section 23, currently the city charter allows an employee or officer of the city to sell to the city goods and services not in excess of $20. I don't know what $20 can buy you this day, but currently the state of Florida passed a rule that says nobody who works for the city can sell anything to the city. So we're taking that part out of the charter. Or asking you to take that part out of the charter. Section 26, streets and sidewalks. This was the other item that Mr. LaCourse is looking at me here. We had conversations about this. This was the other item I asked them to hold off to the end because we spent a lot of time on this. Even at one point, for the public's knowledge of all of this, at one time the city decided that the public decided that the city wasn't spending enough money on sidewalks. So the charter committee back then said, at this point in time, we're going to require you to put X number of dollars every year away till you reach the sum of $2 million. And whatever you spend out of that $2 million, you have to replace the next year to maintain that $2 million figure. Well, Tarpon sidewalks, they've done a great job up to date, but their sidewalks are in dire need. We know we're a walking community now. We're trying to get people that visit downtown to walk to the sponge docks. A lot of people have more energy than I do, and they want to walk out to the beaches. So we decided that the best thing to do was to release the $2 million. But we did that with a lot of what ifs and what have yous. You may like some of them, you may not, but the gist of the whole committee's idea was to use this money strictly for sidewalks that need repair, that need, maybe there's a sidewalk missing between two houses, that type of thing, versus promising a builder down the road that will pay for the sidewalks that go into your community that you're going to build. As important as that is, it doesn't take care of the daily repair and the upgrading and all the rest of it. So that's a short rendition of what you've read, and it's very simple. It's very saving. The best part of it is that you don't have to replace it. You can spend up to $100,000 a year, which gives you 20 years at $2 million. If you put forward $100,000 to replace sidewalks according to these guidelines, you now have $200,000 to do it. If you only put up $30,000, you only get $30,000. And that was our way of insisting that you go forward, fix what we have, include what needs to be extended, and $100,000, 20 years, it's better than what you've been getting. And you don't have to replace it anymore. We're totally satisfied from what we've read that you're making a grand effort to go forward with it, and we're only trying to help. Next, Section 32, amendments. The city charter presently allows the city attorney to request the Charter Revision Commission for an advisory opinion concerning the interpretation. We spent a considerable amount of time on this one also. We basically ended up believing that the current charter commission, between now and when you convene another one, and you can do that anytime the law says you have to do it within 5 years. You can do it next year if you want to. It doesn't matter. But anytime something comes up where there's not a full understanding, We wanted the Board of Commissioners to have the right to come to the Charter Commission that made that decision to ask what their intent was, not just what it reads. So we're changing this to say that the Board of Commissioners have that right that was not in the previous charter. Last but not least is the city hospital. As if you've spent any time reading what was in the charter regarding the city hospital, it all took place prior to the Advent Health Group coming in. It was of a lot of words that meant nothing because they have a contract now with the city that you all agreed upon. So what we decided to do and agreed with was that we took that out, and you have a one-paragraph explanation and thing, and I'll read it. We were in agreement. So let me say that Jason Dunkel, the CEO, and he brought his in-house attorney and sat down with us, and we discussed this. They had no problem with changing it. It still has the same looking for the right word. It's the same protections for the public to have the last say on anything they do there. If they want to change the name, amendments, their articles of incorporation, anything with reference to the city, they have to go to a referendum to the public before they can do that. That was in the other thing, but it was about this long. We shortened it where it meant what it said. I wished I could say if you had any questions tonight, but I'm glad you don't. We're going to do that at a later date, I understand, which is okay with us. Just keep in mind, and maybe Mr. Trask will explain to you, the time frames are very close in terms of how long you have to decide whether you like this, whether you want to change it, whether you want us to add, subtract, multiply, or divide portions of it. And after that, then I believe that total time's like 30 days. So leave enough time so we don't meet that, so that we can meet the deadline to have this on the next referendum. Because when you hold a special referendum just for one item like this, I'm told it's around $35,000, and it really shouldn't be necessary. This is so good for you guys. I know you won't have anything wrong to say about it, even if Mark is making a face. Thank you for your time. If you see any of these members, please thank them for their time. This group of 7 people, like I told you, I sat on more than one occasion on this committee. This was the toughest group I've ever sat with. They didn't take no for an answer. They took explanation for an answer. So if you see them, thank them. Thank these ladies. I wish that Patrick was here because he did a heck of a job.
Mr. Colianis, I want to thank you for the presentation. I also want to thank you and all the members of the Charter Review Commission for reviewing every section of the charter and providing you recommendations. I'd like to ask all the members of the Charter Review Committee to please stand up to be recognized. Thank you so much for your hard work. Appreciate it very much. Huh?
That's 4 out of 7. That constitutes a vote. We can vote. I'm messing with you.
Thank you. Our city attorney, Mr. Trask, if you please review the process and let us know how we're going to proceed.
Okay, so under section 32 of your current charter, it requires that once you receive this charter amendment proposal from the committee, you have to, within 30 days, return the proposed amendment to the Charter Revision Commission with recommended proposals. So that means that by October 23rd, we have to get that back to the commission for their consideration. Following that, The Charter Revision Commission will make its own final report to the Board of Commissioners in ordinance form, and it shall be adopted verbatim by the Board of Commissioners at that time. And then within 120 days from the final report, we have to hold an election on the recommended proposals. So that is the process that we need to go through. So if there's going to be a work session on this issue, we need to schedule it before and have it held before the 23rd of October.
Thank you. What I'd like to recommend to my fellow commissioners that on the next meeting, which is October the 8th, to have a workshop right after the regular BOC meeting. Only one item on the agenda, just this one here, to discuss the Charter Review Commission's recommendations. And if we have some more work that needs to be done, we still have another meeting, which is on the 22nd.
Good with me, man.
Hmm?
It's fine with me.
Fine with you? I got 2 okays. 3, 4. We got a consensus on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any commission comments? Vice Mayor.
I just wanted to use the opportunity, Mayor, to also thank the Charter Review Committee. I've sat up here as an elected official for 7 years, and I would concur with the chairman to say that this is the most in-depth committee that I've ever experienced. I want to thank you all for every Monday that you've met and all the ideas that you've discussed in great detail. So thank you very much for the work that you've done. Looking forward to sinking our teeth into it as this commission and discussing the ideas that you've brought forward. And as the city attorney said, I think we have 30 days to respond and then 120 days from tonight's meeting to collaborate and come to terms with whatever we're going to propose to the public. Is that right?
That's correct.
So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Sieber.
I just want to thank everybody that took all that time and effort and gave so much of yourselves for this, and I appreciate your work and doing this for us, and I look forward to reviewing it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Core.
Thanks, Mayor. Again, I want to echo the same comments that have been said tonight. I know you all have professional lives, you have family lives, and you were not being paid to do this, and you're doing it for the betterment of Tarpon Springs and the residents of Tarpon Springs, and to help the community continue to be the best place to live in Tampa Bay. So I want to say thank you to the Charter Review Committee and also to the City Clerk's Office for all your hard work with everything, and also looking forward to discussing all the items and recommendations amongst the Board of Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Donovan.
Yeah, there's a lot of good ideas here, so thank you to those on the board, and thank you to staff as well. I'm excited to dig more into this, and thank you all for your hard work.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on this item?
Anita Protus, 901 Bayshore Drive. I want to commend former Commissioner Jim Kolianis. He did an excellent job as chairman. I attended all the meetings, as did Mr. Elliott. And when it got to the sidewalk issue, I was worried about Mr. Elliott, but he didn't say a word. He knew it was time, and it is time to work with that sidewalk issue and get it over with. I would go home. I have quite a collection of early charters for the city of Tarpon Springs. One is only 3 pages long. And it's amazing how far we have come in Tarpon Springs. And Mr. Kolianis, and between his knowledge and Costa Vaticotis and Dr. Root's knowledge, and we had a gentleman on the board that sells real estate, and Mr. Janeska's watching the city grow. It was amazing the thoughts that came out. Long discussions. And I do think that the attorney needs a raise or make a little more money for what he went through. They changed things so many times, and Mr. Kolianis was very gracious in letting us make statements or ask about things on each issue. I hope the voters will support an internal auditor. To work with an internal auditor is amazing, what you find out and how he helps the board. We need one, and I hope it's fully appreciated and he will be an asset to the city manager also. One thing that really amazed me, we all remember Mary Quisenberry, the new commissioners don't, but people in the audience remember Mary Quisenberry and Thomas Craig. And when it came to the city attorney, notes in the old charter books that I have showed that years ago, our city attorney were residents of the city. And the notes that are in there, the city attorney dictated what he wanted. And if he didn't want to serve at the on issues for the commission, he told them. And those years were wild on charter revision. And how we've evolved to where we are now is just, we need to write a history book about it. And those people were very adamant on all these issues. And I'm glad that we discussed civil service for the public employees. It's important that we still have it. And they did an excellent job. The people appointed to this charter revision were very well deserving, and we had a great wealth of knowledge, and everyone should thank them. It was intense at times, but it was very, very good, because I've attended a lot of charter revision meetings, and I've been on a couple, and this was one of the best I think the city has ever had. I congratulate them.
Thank you. Any other public comments? I hear none. Thank you. I also like to thank Ms. Jacobs, Mrs. Manousis, and Mr. Perez for doing an excellent job. I also like to request that the chairman, Mr. Jim Colianos, to be present to the next workshop in case we have any questions. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we are now going to the consent agenda, which is item number 2, satisfaction and release of liens. Number 2 is the attorney fees. A, Trask and Dynald, invoice 9/5/2019. B is Johnson and Jackson, invoice 4943, 4944, and 4945. Number 4 is the award file number 200003-N-JL, single source purchase of hash equipment. And number 5 is the award file number 200002-NJL, main is supporting equipment for Motorola radios. And number 6 is the award file number 20010-CO-JL, utilizing the revenues producing Florida State term contract number 8412-1500-15-01, purchasing card services. And the number 7 is file number 200004-N-JL, single source purchase of odor control chemicals. Any of those items that you like to pull? Okay, are there any commission comments? Here are none. Are there any public comments on these items? Items 2 through 7. Here none, the chair will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
And roll call.
Mayor, the one invoice that was in front of your desk had a correction. Is that that motion
That is-
including that corrected?
Correct.
Everybody has a copy.
Yes.
of that.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. We are now going to special consent agenda, which is item number 8. This is the award bid number 190133-B-CM Sidewalks. Staff report.
Yes, I'll have Tom give the report. Basically, this is going out to bid for our sidewalks, subject earlier tonight. And Mr. Function to answer any question. This is the priority list of the sidewalks and what we will be able to do with the bid, and we're ready to proceed as soon as we get this approval.
Thank you. And also, I want to note that you gave us the funding, where the funding comes from for
Yes,
for this item?
yes.
Tom?
Good evening, Tom Funge, Public Works Director. Yeah, this is the same list that you approved back in July of this year. We include about 12 different locations throughout the city. And it was awarded to, actually, the award to C&T Contracting Services, not to exceed $165,000. I'm open to any questions.
Well, I just want to say that I am disappointed that the contract was not awarded to any of the three companies from Tarpon Springs. They were a little bit higher.
A little bit, yeah.
Tom, one of our goals is for the city of Tarpon Springs to become a walking community. Mr. Colianos mentioned that earlier as well. How many sidewalks, do we keep track of, do we have an inventory of what sidewalks that we still have to repair and to install?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. We have, we you know, we go through the whole city a couple times a year, do evaluations on all the sidewalks. So I do have a list. I mean, this list will be added to, of course, as we go down the road. But we evaluate them at least once a year, sometimes twice a year, depending.
What do? We send an employee out to evaluate the sidewalks, make sure they don't have any damages and things?
It's a number of things. It's employees, the public will get phone calls on it. We look at construction sites, traffic flows. It's a number of different areas. It's a multiple, and there's actually probably about 15 to 20% is broken sidewalks, where someone drove over a sidewalk. Maybe there's a utility break. Trees may have grown up in some areas. So,
thank you, Commissioner Carr.
Thanks, Mayor. Tom, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. These are all going to be new sidewalks that are put in, right, for these?
Yeah, I think a couple of the small ones do have a panel or two broken where they ended off, areas like that, yes.
Yeah, one of them I'm really excited about is the Gulf Road, Sunset Beach area. That's something that the residents should have had some time ago, and it's going to be a complete connection. My understanding is now to Sunset Beach with a crosswalk out there, so I'm super excited about that. Thank you for taking initiative. There's a lot of areas around Tarpon Springs that don't have sidewalks that have been missing for quite some time as well. So this is good to see that a lot of different neighborhoods, it's not just one area of town. This is all over the city, north, south, east, and west, are going to be seeing new sidewalks this year. So thank you for your help with this. And if I could also encourage the city to continue to look at the crosswalks, work with the county where it's county property, and focus in the high traffic areas, and really put focus in those areas, making sure that those stay up to par from not having cracks in them, and making sure that we're looking at additional crosswalks to add throughout the city. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Terrapini.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom, for the presentation. I just would like to say that this board has made it known in the past that we want to see some of the funding sources for these projects, so I'm appreciative that that was included within the backup. I do have a question regarding something stated in the backup, and that was a recommendation for award that came from Kathy Morgan to you, and it says, "We've attached the bid tabulation and copies of the bids for your review." So I don't know if I'm missing a page, or if that was just part of the backup and then there wasn't the actual bid tabulation. You have one in your backup? You got it right. This is it right here? Oh, okay. So to the mayor's point, you know, we have the 5% credit for contractors located within the city of Tarpon Springs. So on the first two, I guess I'm just curious if the Tarpon Springs, the Tim Group, they were about, I guess about 10% difference, right?
Yes.
But so if it was, I guess that 5% is already calculated within.
Right here.
That'd be good.
Jay Jackus, Public Procurement Services Director. That only applies to requests for proposals, not straight bids.
Only applies for requests for proposals.
Where price is not the only determining factor.
I see. So the 5% credit is not as it relates to price?
It does not apply to this, no.
Okay. Maybe that's something that we can get some more discussion on moving forward. We can put that on an agenda item. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Tom. This is the best of both worlds because the most competitive bid won, and we had multiple Tarpon Springs businesses actually bid on this. So thank you very much. I'm excited to see these projects get done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. We have many streets under the jurisdiction of Pinellas County.
Yes.
I'm having monthly lunch meetings with Commissioner Eggers. If you provide me a list of sidewalks that the county can repair and install, please let me know.
Be happy to do that.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on this item? Here none, I need a motion, please,
Second.
and roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. Next is item number 9 is the award file number 20006-C-JL, utilizing the City of St. Petersburg RFP number 7205,6, Strategy Partnership Agreement for Water and Wastewater Supplies. Staff report.
Good evening, Paul Smith, Public Services Director. This item, we're requesting your authorization to utilize a contract through the City of St. Petersburg for the purchase of supplies for our wastewater and water system. These are pipes, hydrants, valves, that sort of equipment that we use on a regular basis to maintain, repair, or build new parts to our system. I kind of see it as a volume discount. This is a specialized type of product that can't be easily obtained anywhere else. I talked to the staff that order a lot from this company, and not only is the pricing very good, but they're very responsive. They have a large inventory, and sometimes when we have emergency repairs, we need parts very quickly, and they're accommodating in a quick delivery. So there's a lot of value added through this contract, and I recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. So this item is specific on, based on the usage, right? If we don't use the amount, it stays there.
That's correct, Mayor. We track our usages, and based on an average weekly usage rate, we estimate what we're requesting you to authorize as an upper limit.
Do you remember, or do you know how much did we spend last year on this particular item?
Yeah, I think the number was somewhere a little over 5,000 a week was the average. So if you multiply all that out, it puts it close to that $300,000. We like to leave a little bit of room just in case there's a need, especially with repairs.
That's how you come up with the 3.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Commission comments? Commissioner Super.
Hi, thank you. The check valves that we've been waiting on, are they at all affiliated with this, or I even actually would like an update at some point?
Oh, we're talking about the stormwater valves.
I
Tom?
got the answer on that because
Okay.
I was talking to Bob earlier on the same thing. We're expecting those check valves to be here in 2 weeks, and they should be installed by the mid-November.
Because I've been getting a lot of
Yeah.
questions from the merchants on the sponge docks, so that's good to know. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And just for them, it's not been a holdup by us, it's been a holdup of
Yes.
actually obtaining the check valves from the
And
company.
that's been explained to them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Are there any public comments on this item? Here not, the chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion to approve?
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. And we're now going to the item number 10, employee health insurance coverage and clinic leaves. Staff report, Mr. Licorice.
Yes, while Jane Niffen is coming up to give the presentation, I'm very happy to bring this to you. Obviously, we're at the last meeting possible, but I'm happy to get this done. As you know, we had a wrinkle in this thing when Oldsmar pulled out of the clinic in August. I think the end of July, August, we heard. As you all know from our previous presentations, this clinic is one of the best benefits that you give the employees and have a tremendous amount of use, as you see in there. So be able to put all of this together and get it to you and be within the budget that we had is nothing short of a miracle, but I think it's been done, and I'll have Jane give the presentation of the final results and your approval to have our healthcare plan with at least one more year of the clinic as it is now. Jane.
Okay. Honorable Mayor and Board of Commissioners, Jane Niffen, HR Director. I'm here tonight to make a recommendation. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's better. I'm short. I have 2 recommendations. One is that the mayor and board of commissioners approve the wellness center agreement, which is attachment 1 to your package. And this is in partnership with the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust and CARE ATC for a period of 1 year, commencing October of 2019 through September 20th of 2020. The cost sharing is outlined. I'll briefly deal with that in just a minute. The second recommendation is that the board and mayor and board of commissioners approve the attached health care plan, which is provided by FMIT for a 1 year period, effective October 1, 2019 through September 30th, 2020. And again, the cost sharing is attached in attachment 3. I won't belabor everything. I've tried to be as concise as I can and get as much information to you in the documents that I've provided. However, there are a couple of things I think are worth mentioning. One is that for many years, and I've been here a long time, for probably almost 20 years, the city has been faced with trying to maintain a decent level of benefits while battling the increasing costs of health care. And as I've outlined here, we've done a number of things. We've stepped down plans, we've increased co-pays, we've done a number of things that have put us in the position that we're in now. Some of the items I have mentioned talk about the trend, also the how do I put it, the coverage mandates that are imposed by governments beyond our control, often unfunded mandates. We also talk about the claims ratios, but the thing that's very important to us is the fact that claims are claims and must be paid. One of the best ways to control claims is a focus on early intervention and utilization reduction. One of the biggest projects we've had, and that's been going for several years, is our wellness program, where we've had personal health assessments, we've had newsletters, seminars, we have Care 24, which is 24/7 phone service, and we also have Weight Watchers, smoking cessation, which has tried to intervene and raise people's awareness and try to avoid catastrophic claims. But in 2013, in about September 2013, we entered a four-way partnership with the Trust, the CARE ATC, Oldsmar, and ourselves. This clinic has become very important to our employees. As you can see from reports, the utilization has really increased tremendously, most of it by word of mouth. People initially were a little reserved about using something with the fear that maybe we were going to force them to go to that clinic and that was the only place they could go. That is not the case. The clinic does not intend to compete with specialists, nor the hospital or any of those things. It's for basic health services. I have included, and I'm getting back to your little chart that says what the cost expenditure is going to be. Our increase is 9.4%, which is pretty good considering the trend for United in this area is 9.2. And that 9.4 includes the cost of operating the clinic, except for the lease. Now, the lease agreement originally, when we had a four-partner contract, was Oldsmar 30% and the City of Tarpon Springs 70%. Now that Oldsmar is no longer with us, CARE ATC has stepped up and is now paying 21% of the lease, and we assumed an additional 9%, so we're paying 79%. Excuse me. So basically, that's the renewal in a nutshell. The summary I have for you does recommend that the city continue to pay 100% of the employee benefit, the employee only. And we're also recommending that the city share the increase in dependent care on a 50-50 basis. I do want to mention that there is money in the budget. The other thing that is important to know is that the city currently has gone out for bid for a benefits consultant to examine our whole benefit program and go out for RFP for bid to do our due diligence. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. That's one of my questions, is when we're going to initiate the RFP. for competitive bid?
I'm sorry, I beg your
When
pardon?
we're going to initiate the RFP?
It's already gone out and it's come back. We're in the process of,
November.
oh, yes, November,
November.
we'll probably come back to you probably in November.
Okay.
But
And
we
we
have
should
already
have-
initiated it.
For the next year?
Yes.
Thank you. You know, it's worth it mention that I've done some calculations on my own, and based on the data that was provided to us by Gellinger, it says the clinic had 1,780 office visits last year. So if we didn't have the clinic, that means people had to call out sick, and the minimum would have been 4 hours. So if you calculate that, it comes out to 7,120 hours time loss we could have if we didn't have the clinic. And if you calculate that based on the 2,080 hours, that's the working hours the employee will work every year, we're saving 3.4 employees every year. And I'm not sure how much do they make. If it's probably just a minimum 25,000, we're getting close to $100,000 savings. That is not calculated until that.
Okay.
So what Mr. Licura says, this is the best benefit of the employees, but it's also good for the city as well. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Yeah, I see what path you're going down, Mayor, and I agree with you. The numbers are worth showing in the next time we discuss this, just for the public, because the amount of visits that the employee health clinic sees really equates to, I feel like, less claims in the long run as it relates to early intervention. So I think that the clinic, without a doubt, pays for itself in the long run. I will say, and this is very important to me, that as we rebid this process, the last time that we talked about the CARE ATC facility and the employee health clinic, although I support it in nature and the idea of it, I just want to make sure that our local community hospital has an opportunity to be involved in the bid process and offer a clinic. That was discussed in detail, and it split the board last time that we talked about this. So just know that that's something that I'll be looking for. But other than that, I think the employee health clinic is a win for everybody. As the mayor said, it's a win for the employees, and it's also a win for the city as it relates to finance. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Seaver.
Yes, thank you, Jane. I don't feel like I think this is a no-brainer. It saves our employees money, our city money. Early intervention, I think, is very important, and we've seen an increase in employees using this benefit every year, and we're not losing money. So I think it's also, of course, a great benefit to our employees, and I was one of the ones that didn't use the clinic for the first 2 years maybe that I was in office, but I see the benefit of it, and our employees benefit, and as the mayor was saying, being able to go to this clinic and not taking a day off from work to travel to a doctor or what, I mean, it's just a great benefit. So thanks for your work, and I definitely support this.
Thank you. Commissioner Carr?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation and the backup data for this. Obviously, health insurance is one of the costs that keep going up in our country. It's not something we see reduced all that often. I do see the benefit in the health clinic, and like Vice Mayor mentioned, I do think it's imperative and it's super, super important to include our local community hospital in the next bid, and somehow figure out how we can make sure that they're involved with this process of having a service here in Tarpon Springs and utilizing our relationships in that aspect too. So I think that's really important to do in the next bid moving forward, and I don't have any other further comments after that.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It's another really detailed one. You got everything from cost drivers to city intervention, so everything looks really good, but I'm excited to see what comes back with the bid, and I'd also support involving any local options we could pursue. But thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on this item? Mr. Kuskouris?
Mike Kuskouris, 623 East Tarpon Avenue. I appreciate what Commissioner Carr said. I think it would be great for the hospital once you do an RFP to have the hospital chime in and see what they can offer the city. because if you factor in the cost of the lease cost with the increase, what's the true increase that you're actually paying? I think the hospital can be competitive when this does come around for an RFP, we are doing some amazing, great things at the hospital. I just recently returned from a 3-day retreat with the hospital, talking about our strategic plan moving forward for next year, and there are some exciting new platforms within which to deliver healthcare. Healthcare and the delivery of healthcare is a very complex thing. Keeping costs down is very difficult, as you know, going through this process on an annual basis. It's not so much when your costs go up, if they go up 10%, 20%, 30%, you're not getting 20% or 30% better health care. It's the cost of administering that health care. And so there are things, we are the largest nonprofit hospital serving the state of Florida. Yes, we are bigger than Baycare, and nevertheless, there are some advantages to being at that size, that you can, in fact, reduce some of your costs and your overhead, your administrative expenses when delivering that health care. So just wanted a fair shake next year when this comes around for an RFP, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments on this item? Here none. I will entertain a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr? Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. We are now going to the item number 11, which is the resolution 2019-29, the application 19-85, conditional use to allow home occupation for boarding of cats at 1206 East Boyer Street. This is quasi-judicial. The city attorney will read the title, and he will explain the quasi-judicial process.
Resolution 2019-29, a resolution of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, approving application number 19-85, requesting a conditional use to allow home occupation for boarding of cats on property located at 1206 East Boyer Street in the single-family residential zoning district R-70A, providing for findings, providing for conditions, and providing for an effective date. That was the reading of resolution number 2019-29 by title only. I'll go ahead and read the quasi-judicial procedures that we'll be using today. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Board of Commissioners acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. I would ask at this point if the commission, if there have been any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest that need to be disclosed. There being none, I'd like anyone that's going to speak on this item, if you could please stand up, raise your right hand. I'm going to swear you under oath. Is the applicant here? Okay. You swear that the testimony you're about to give is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. And the city staff would present first.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Heather Earler, Planning and Zoning Director, and staff for this application. This application is actually coming back to you. This was previously approved in 2016, and at that time, it was an experiment for the owner. She was trying to see if this business, she could make a go of this business. This is a great thing. This is a home-based business that's actually coming back and saying, I am very successful. I need to do a little bit more. So she is actually asking to amend a single condition of the original resolution, and that's the number of cats that she can actually house within the area of her home that she's using. Essentially, the types of kennels that she uses, that she can fit multiple cats in an actual area. So she has clients that come to her that may have 2 cats. She wants to be able to house them together because they're usually together in their own house. So as a result, she's asking for to add additional cats. So we're going the request is from 9 cats, which was the original resolution, to 18 cats. And she can answer any questions you have about the business, any specifics of that type of thing. But that's really what we're here to discuss, is really just that change in that condition. It's nice to see that they've been successful and that their business is thriving and growing in our community. And the only issues that came up at the Planning and Zoning Board was we had several people who were here for Ms. Stern on her behalf, and then there was one neighbor who was opposed to the application. Basically, the opposition was they didn't feel that it was that the business. One, they didn't know the business was going on. But they also didn't feel that the business was a valid use of a residential piece of property. However, Ms. Stern has been able to maintain the character of this property. It appears to be a residence, other than the fact that she is being successful in her business. That's really the only issue here. So she's here to answer any questions, and I can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Heather. Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
The question that I have is, they're going to have 2 cats per space.
Correct.
Is the Pinellas County Animal Service agrees with that?
Yeah, she's met all of the criteria. We actually called down to animal control to find out a little bit more, because again, we don't administer a lot of animal issues here in the city. So we actually called down there to verify. She has all of the proper permitting, and she has sufficient housing for multiple cats in each of the kennel type areas that she's using inside her home. But it's all internal to the home.
Any additional questions by the commission?
I've got it. Vice Mayor.
Go ahead. Who wants to jump in first?
Go ahead. Okay. I just, Heather, I've got a couple questions, and thank you for your background on this information. If this were outside, that wouldn't be allowed, correct?
Correct.
Help me on just also, if you confirm, I believe this is correct. If someone wanted to rent a room out to a person, they wouldn't be able to do that in this zoning district, correct? Single residential family?
Correct.
Okay. But the city allows rooms to be rented to cats.
This is a home-based business. It falls under that criteria of the home-based business portion of your code.
Okay. I just want to make a point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Heather, is the applicant in agreement with the staff recommendations of approval 1 through 8?
I believe so, but she can attest to that in her presentation.
Okay.
Any other questions, Commissioner?
Yes, I see that you have up to 18 cats. Is that monitored somehow, or how do we know that?
She's limited by this conditional use. We don't do inspections here, but however, if we got complaints or those types of things, we would have to send code enforcement out there to do some type of inspection or animal control.
Mr. Donovan, any questions?
I don't have any questions for Heather.
Okay. So, Heather, did you want to go through the criteria then, or did you just want to tender your staff report into evidence?
I'm going to tender my staff report into evidence and the conditions as well.
Okay. Is the applicant wishing to make a presentation? You could state your name and your address, please.
My name is Tina Stern at 1206 East Boyer. The reason that I am requesting the increase, basically, I have 9 available spaces. They're quite large. They could accommodate 2 Great Danes in one of my spaces. They're 4 foot by 6 foot. This scenario has come up a couple of times where I've had like maybe 3 clients. They each have maybe 3 cats. They're using 3 spaces. I've got 9 cats, but I've got 6 empty units. So that's my dilemma. I want to be compliant, but I want to be able to use my whole space, which is already existing. Because of my veterinary background, I tend to be attracting people with medical needs. I have clients that have diabetics, cats on fluid therapy for, renal insufficiencies and things like that. So if I have 9 cats there, but I have empty spaces and I have to deny, somebody that needs my medical help to leave their cat with me for a while, I just, that's why I'm here, going through the expense of the application and the stress of going through all this. It's worth it to me to be able to accommodate more, to help more, and still be compliant. And as far as the inspection question, Pinellas County Animal Services, I voluntarily enrolled in a program to where they can randomly, as long as it's a reasonable hour of the day, they can pop in at any time, check the premises, do a head count, and I'm sure that would be information that could be forwarded to you or collected, or they would revoke my permit to operate, basically, if I wasn't being compliant with the county and the city conditions. So all those are posted on my wall, all my applications and my certificates and my rules of operation. So that's why I'm here today.
Any question of the applicant?
Yes. Well, thank you, ma'am. I spoke to one of your customers today, and he was very happy for the services that you're providing.
Okay.
And the question that I have is, you're going to have up to 80 customers. What are you going to do to accommodate them for parking?
Well, we take each visitor, we take one visitor at a time. I have a double pad parking and I have a single pad parking. So even with our own personal vehicles, I have ample parking lot or driveway parking. I like to give everybody my individual attention. I don't like to have more than one person there at a time so I can concentrate on what they need. So I never have people parking in the street or lining up or coming unexpected. I don't sell anything of any kind, so there's really no reason for people just to pop in to pick something up. It would be specifically to drop off or to pick up. So we do that by appointment only, one at a time.
Any other questions?
I had a question.
Vice Mayor?
Ms. Stern, are you in agreement with the staff recommendations of approval 1 through 8?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Carr, any questions?
Mayor asked.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Donovan?
This is almost more of a comment, but I just want to thank you for soliciting all the neighbor support letters. I think there's 8 or more letters in our backup from Ms. Stern's neighbors, all in support of this business and testifying that she keeps the property in tip-top shape. So I just wanted to thank you for making that extra effort in your application.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address this application tonight? There being none, we can close the public hearing. Unless there's a summary either one of you wanted to give, any additional information, additional summary? No?
I have no additional comment unless you have questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, there we go, Mayor. Yes, back to you.
Any commission comments?
Yes, sir.
I will entertain a motion for that, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr? Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. Okay, we are now going to the item number 12, which is the application 19-97. This is an appeal for CA 19-77, St. Nicholas Greek Orthodox Cathedral, 20 North Pinellas Avenue. This is rehearing from September 10. Before we go to staff report, City Attorney, do you have any comments on the rehearing process?
Well, so you have a provision in your code, 2-157 paren C, and I just want to read that because that's the reason it's coming back. It says, in the event there's a tie vote, and there was a tie vote at the last meeting, that the matter shall be considered an equipoise and shall be placed on the next regular meeting for reconsideration. The mayor may make a motion or second any motion, but prior to thereto shall pass the gavel to the mayor pro tem or the most senior member of the commission or president at such time. In the event the mayor passes the gavel, the mayor shall not chair the discussion of that particular item until the vote is announced. In no event shall the commissioner making a motion or second the motion of the chair, the discussion on the motion. So that is the reason that we're bringing it back. You have a provision in your code that's a little different than other cities. As for the process itself, you need to treat it as if you had heard no information from before, and so you've got to hear it all over again. And so the presentation again would be by staff first, and then Mr. Kuskudis, if he wishes to make the presentation like he did the last time, that's the way we need to do it. Treat it as if you did not hear it before.
Thank you. Staff report.
Heather Earler, Planning and Zoning Director, and staff for this application. So as the attorney has laid out for you, we are here to hear this appeal of certificate CA 1977 for exterior renovations to a contributing structure at 20 North Pinellas Avenue. Essentially, this application was heard by the Heritage Preservation Board on August 5th, 2019, for a variety of different improvements to the outside portion of the structure. Essentially, the staff recommended denial of this application, and the Heritage Preservation Board agreed with that, with the staff report. So I would tender the original staff report into the record as the basis for the staff's recommendation of the original certificate of approval. Staff does not make a recommendation on your appeal. However, we basically concur that, with obviously the denial of HPB based on the fact that the structure and the changes that are being modified to the structure don't meet the architectural style of that building. So they're going beyond the architectural style and proposing changes to the structure that are not consistent with your design guidelines, nor are they consistent with the Secretary of Interior's design guidelines. So that was the basis of the staff's analysis and for the findings of the Heritage Preservation Board for denial of this application. With that, I can answer any questions. No questions.
Any questions, staff? Yeah, thank you very much.
The city manager may want to put some additional information into the record, so.
Thank you.
Yes. As the attorney said, we have to start this meeting anew. I spoke last time. Whether it was wise or not, I'm not sure, but I feel an obligation to staff and an obligation to this board to say some of the same things I said at the last meeting. Obviously, we're submitting the staff report. The staff report recommended denial based on the criteria of the code that you have set out. As you know, I've lost some of those hearings in front of Heritage Preservation where they didn't think I adhered to the code, and that's the way it is. I know this is an item that is unique because of the nature of who is applying, but as you know, I'm a man of the law. Staff made their recommendations based on the law. There are other methods that we reminded you last week, but if you want, there are other methods to go at to try to achieve that. We'd be glad to go over them again. But for two things I want to say, there was very clear, and unless you hear evidence that's presented by the other side that disputes that, your ruling is made on your code and on the law, not on common sense, not on that kind of thing. That's what you need to make the ruling on. And if you do make the rule to grant the appeal, please have some reasoning. And I don't want to speak for the city attorney, but obviously there's some contention in the community over this, and it could be appealed. The attorney is going to need something to deal with in an appeal process, or otherwise, if this goes forward to that appeal, we don't want to go down before a judge and not have a basis to stand on. So it's important from a lot of ramifications. It's also going to be important for any other decision or people that go to the preservation board and then want to appeal, and then looking at this decision, maybe trying to base it. So there are a lot more factors than simply, doing something in this area because it's right and doing something by the law. So I just ask you to hear the testimony that you're going to get from the other side. And if they meet, and they meet in your mind because it's solely your decision, then you grant the appeal. But if they don't, I just ask you for the repercussions that should happen to consider it very closely and consider your decision on the matter.
Thank you. We are now going to the public comments. We'll start with Mr.
Applicant.
Applicant first.
Yeah.
First and foremost, City Manager, I don't disagree with you. Okay, this is a technical argument, and it's an argument based on the code. As this commissioner as commissioners, you act as a trier of fact. You have the law in front of you, you listen to the evidence, but at the end of the day, you get to make that decision based on the law presented to you and the facts and circumstances surrounding the law. I've taken the liberty of copying the portion of the code, because I know you have it at I don't know if you have it at your fingertips, but I did, in fact, make copies for the pertinent sections of the code. So if it's okay. And I'll wait till you each get your copy. First page didn't really copy the way I wanted it to copy, but it's there. Under Chapter 111, the code provides a process to appeal the decision of the Heritage Preservation Board. You have 20 days to file an appeal. Our appeal was submitted timely, and it was submitted based on two arguments, both under Section 108 of the code. Section 108J of the code states that if the applicant wants to remove the property as a historical site, the applicant must follow the rules under Sections 108C through I. At the prior commission meeting, Attorney Trask pointed out that our appeal did not follow that part of the code, and I agreed that it did not. When the code suggested that we need to file an appeal and submit our reasoning for the appeal, we did so. And we laid out all the reasons for the appeal. Again, we hung our hat on two issues on the appeal. The one, like as Attorney Trask indicated, was that part of the code that required us to go back to the Heritage Preservation Board to have the property removed as a historical property. I think that's what the recourse, the suggestion I gleaned from some of the comments that were made. In as much as I agree with Attorney Trask with regard to that particular part of the code, however, we also requested that an appeal be granted under 108 Section B, which does not require us to rely on Section 108 C through I. If you look at Section J that discusses the process of having a proper removed, it says you have to remove it based on Sections 108 C through I. There's no reference to that in Section B. 108B stands on its own. At the prior commission meeting, a lot of the argument was focused on Section 108 C through I, and 108B was lost in our argument. 108B provides properties including religious institution or used properties for religious purposes will not normally be considered for designation unless that property is an integral part of a historic district or if it falls within a certain list of categories under 108B through 1 through 6. And I'll have you look at B1 through 6. None of that applies. The property meets none of those requirements under Section 108B through 6. Accordingly, the property should not have even been considered for designation as a historical property. Nothing in the code requires the applicant to make application for removal under Section 108J, nor does Section 108B require the property owner to be proactive in having the property not considered an historical designation. It merely states that the property should have not been considered. The Heritage Preservation Board did not consider the arguments that were made that the property was needed for religious purposes and the property had been altered significantly. The properties adjacent, the properties across the street are not contributing and are not historic. Section 108.02 of the code provides criteria for the City Commission that suggests The Board of Commissioners may remove the historic, cultural, or archaeological designation from a structure, site, traditional cultural property, or district by ordinance if one or more of the following criteria are met. Number one, the property no longer meets the applicable criteria for designation found in 108. Or an error was made in the petition or the procedure for designating the property as a subject property. So our argument is there was an error to begin with. And this commission has authority to say that is an error in the designation of this property. There's no requirement under this particular section that requires the applicant to go back under section 108 C through I to resubmit its petition through the Heritage Preservation Board. I don't know if there's any questions.
No question. Thank you. Any other public comments on this item?
I've got a couple questions, Mayor, if I could ask. Was that questions to us, or is that when you asked for questions?
Questions of the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I could ask him a question?
Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Kouskoudis, if you could just clarify, the initial request to the Historic Preservation Board wasn't to remove this property from the historic district or remove the historic designation. It was
To alter
applying
the
for
property.
the alterations of
Correct.
the
Correct.
property, correct? Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
that I
and
understand
we had an opportunity to appeal the decision and to summarize why we think the board was in error. And so my argument is the code, that it's an error. It should have not been considered.
And to clarify then, so you're not, in the appeal, it's not appealing the denial from the historic preservation for the architectural designs and the removal of the windows and other aspects. It's actually the appealing to remove the property as the historic designation.
Well, it's kind of tricky here, because if you're asking, there is a process to have the property removed under 108 C through I. If you petition the Heritage Preservation Board to have that property removed as a contributing structure, that's the process. What I'm saying is it should have not even been considered, because of if you look at section 108B, there's no requirement under section 108B to revisit this in front of the Heritage Preservation Board. It just said it should have not even been considered. And if you look at 108.02, it says the city commission has the ability, if they think this was done in error. And I'm saying it's done in error.
Okay. So I just want to be clear, though, the title of the appeal is Appeal of the Historic Preservation Board and Decision and Request for Removal of Designation.
Okay, if you look at my written summary on my appeal, on page 2, it references 108, section B.
I understand that. Yeah, I just want to make sure that you're appealing the
I'm
removal.
appealing something I had already requested that be considered.
Okay. So
It's not a new argument. It's just that part of the argument. I think we kind of lost track of in the last commission meeting, because we kept on going back to removing it under 108 C through I.
I understand that, and I'm asking this because last meeting doesn't exist now, right?
I understand that, but
so I guess my other question is that
that's why I didn't bring it up.
You missed the appeal, though, of the actual application that was presented to the historic preservation. You're appealing something completely different. Am I correct in that?
No, I am appealing the decision of the Historical Preservation Board. We made argument at the Historical Preservation Board that this property was going to be used for religious purposes, and it was no longer it had been altered so much that the property should have not even been considered, and that was denied.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comments on this item?
David Bolton, 508 North Gross Avenue, Tarpon Springs, Florida. I've served on the HPB, and I really appreciate their work and all they do, and I really appreciate the staff's work on this. My caution to the board is to be very careful with trying to do something, thinking of just trying to get something, an answer, versus completing the full due process. There may be a way to process this that the applicant ends up getting what they want, but appealing the decision of the HPB, I'm not sure that that's the right precedence that you want to set. There's a lot of things at play here. First of all, the applicant mentioned the deterioration of the building. However, the applicant has owned the building since 1995. So we have to be very careful about approving things based on neglect when an owner has owned a building. I love St. Nicholas, and I'm so thankful to have them. It's hard when that's the applicant because of the prestige they have in the community, but we have to set that aside and say, are we doing the right process, the legal process? And if that was to apply first to have the building removed and then come back with an application to replace it with something else, that seems to be the right process, because then you still have to abide by the architectural guidelines. So it doesn't seem like a sweeping appeal, approving the appeal gives them the opportunity to do whatever they want. There still has to be guidelines followed when replacing a structure and all of those guidelines. So I love the fact that they're wanting to do something with that corridor in that section of the city. And I'm not sure I haven't seen all the things that they want to do, but I think it's very important that the city follow the right process for that to happen. Otherwise, we're setting precedents for other applicants that might do the same thing. So I just ask you to look at that really clearly. I'm not for or against what they want to do. I just want to make sure that we follow the right process so that that is upheld. It's very, very important that we keep that standard for everybody in the city. Thank you for your time, and thank you guys for what you want to do.
Next. Thank you.
Good evening, Anita Prost, 901 Bay Shore. The building in question is a contributing factor to the historic preservation. It's right here. It's in your comp plan, it's in the ordinance. And when this was decided early in the 80s and the 90s, there was great documentation given as to why that building is a contributing factor. It has deteriorated through the years due to the lack of maintenance and taking care of properties. The comprehensive list of historic resources was identified during the Historic Resource Survey of the Tarpon Springs Heritage Historic Program. So that was it. Again, it was given a contributing factor because of its Moorish revival stand next to the church's property, and that whole area became a historic district. In your historic resources element right here by the Planning and Zoning Board, these are all the ordinances, rules and regulations, state, national, and city. These are the laws that you have to go by. If we lose this, we have jeopardy of losing our historic destination because we have a national cathedral there now. And that was greatly discussed at the city with the commission, and it was said that the fundamental purpose of any historic preservation program, particularly the historic preservation element, and a comprehensive plan which we have to follow, is to protect the historic resources within the local government's jurisdiction against adverse impact and to promote awareness among the residents and governmental officials of the wisdom of preserving such resources. We had public meetings on this. The historic resources of the Tarpon Springs areas are a vital ingredient of the city's unique sense of place. Without the individuality of the city's historic structures and National Register Historic District, the Tarpon Springs then would appear indescribable from other communities. The The adoption of the Tarpon Springs Historic Resources element will enhance current policies and programs that protect the architectural, historic, and archaeological resources for the present and future citizens of Tarpon Springs. The 163 Florida statutes and Chapter 9J-5 Florida Administrative Code pertaining to comprehensive plan elements. Although the historic resources element is optional, it must be consistent with the other elements of the Tarpon Springs Comprehensive Plan. Before we change that, that's what we need to decide on. This is interesting. It took a lot of work. It took quite a few years. Dr. Monahan was on the board. I was working with him. We had so many people and the community coming in, giving information and working with us to have a historic district throughout the city. The Tarpon Springs has a wealth of historic resources. In 1990, the city adopted a historic resource ordinance, established a local historic district, and that's where part of the church is. National Protection Act. An equally important federal law is the National Protection Act of 1969, which we went for, which requires federal agencies to prepare an impact statement for activity and effects of the human environment. There's a lot going in. There's not enough to read. But when you took your oath, you said that you swear or affirm that I will support, protect, and uphold the construction of the United States and the state of Florida and the charter and laws of the city of Tarpon Springs. And you hold that for office. I'm not fighting the church what they want to do. Wait a minute, I was attacked for it. It's wrong. I have a right to come up here and speak to protect
Of course
the
you do, but your
historic,
time
the
has
historic
expired,
value
please.
of our city, and I hope you follow the rules and regulations of it so we don't lose it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next person, please.
My name is Carolyn Crangelin Root, better known as Carrie. I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to the Board of Commissioners to address this. I have served in the past on the Historic Preservation Committee, Historic Preservation Board of the City of Tarpon Springs. I have a couple of comments. I'm adding to what I had prepared because of Mr. Kuskudis' argument. I would like to start off with just addressing that. I feel that his argument does not apply because at the time of the designation of that property being historic, the church didn't own the property. When they purchased the property, it came with that limitation. That's an encumbrance and responsibility to respect that at the time of their purchase. So I don't feel his argument has validity for you to consider. The second thing is it makes me sad that this issue's become a fight between the city and St. Nicholas's interests. I don't think it's where it belongs. The designer that supported them has a responsibility to guide their clients through the approval process and provide designs that will meet that process. The designer clearly let St. Nicholas down by allowing the design to go in the direction it did and get to this point. I think St. Nicholas should take their fight back with their designer and have him do his due diligence and do an adequate job and provide a design that would meet the requirements of historic preservation. It's not impossible. It happens all the time. It's just a matter of egos here, I believe. The guidelines for historic preservation are well-defined, well-documented, and publicly available. These are not big secrets kept by the board. They are available to any designer that you want to go work with. It's their responsibility to make sure things are followed or to advise you as to when you're running amok. The property in question is not just in a local historic district. It's also in a National Historic District, and it's in a National Cultural Historic District. That in itself is significant. I also support the statements made by Mr. Bolton in that selective enforcement of ordinances is a very, very slippery slope. I request that the Board of Commissioners help St. Nicholas refocus their issue to the source of their issue, which is back to their designer, and do that by denying this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Harry Andropoulos, 907 Bayshore Drive. I'm also a property owner in the downtown area in the historic district, as well as I'm representing Mr. Kappas, who also is a property owner in that district. I want to encourage the board to grant this appeal. It makes sense. We've complied. We've given you a place to stand legally, and it's the right thing to do. The building is no longer historic in nature in any way. It actually had lost its historic character before the church purchased it. I wanted to make that clear. The church didn't just tear it apart and destroy its historic character. It was already in a state of ruin when we bought it, and we basically used it a little bit, but then it became uninhabitable. The other item is, it makes sense. It should be part of our campus. It will improve the downtown area. It will actually improve people coming to Tarpon Springs. But I just want to exhort you to go ahead and approve this appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? If, please come down here so we line up, speak.
Mr. Andropoulos gave me the balance of his time. I just wanted to point out a few things.
No.
Let the public speak.
Mr. Stamos?
Hi, George Stamus. Sorry I wasn't down here. 46 West Lemon Street, Tarpon Springs. So why are we ignoring the portion of the ordinance which clearly says that these structures owned by religious organizations should not be considered for historic designation? That's there for a reason. I think the reason is, that you shouldn't really enforce those same requirements on a church that's got to have specific design requirements in their properties. And it is part of our campus. There's nothing else right adjacent to it or across the street that actually has historic designation. It only makes sense to do what we're requesting, to allow this to become part of our church. It's church property. I really ask you to grant the application based on the fact that it is a church-owned property, and the building has no significance anymore as far as a contributing structure. Please, asking you again to please grant the application.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Charles Samarkis, 1110 South Florida Avenue, Tarpon Springs, Florida. I'm also, as most of you know, I have a big mouth and I'm a lawyer and I'm talk. So my fellow parish council members who, just raise your hand if you're on our parish council, are here tonight in support of this. Now, a couple of things. Tom Trask, an excellent lawyer, by the way, I would approve raising his rate too, because hopefully when all tides rise, my rates will raise as well. So as an aside, Tom, I hope you get that. He's going to have to advise you on the law. I'm not really going to come here and advise you on what Mike was saying or what Tom was saying. The other thing, I think, just on behalf of the parish council and the church, I do not believe that anybody that votes against this is going to be against our church. This is an important issue to us, so Dennis Kappas has stepped up and basically trying to help save a building that we can't afford to do anything with. It has been in disrepair for a while. He's been instrumental in working with our bishop of our diocese, our metropolitan, to be able to get this approved, along with Father Athanasios. I can't really dispute what she said about having to go back, other than when we've worked with our designer, who I believe with Mr. Hoffman, this is what they came up with, this is what we're trying to get done. So I'm really just saying that our church, our parish council, and our our members that voted to have this chapel would like to get this done. Procedurally, I really don't offer any comment. I would defer again to Mr. Kaskudis and Mr. Trask, but we thank you for your attention and we thank you for your time, and hopefully you'll vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any of the public comments, please? Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Jim Shoemaker. I am currently the vice president, first vice president. I guess we have two. I'm also an attorney, Florida Bar number 970913. 5230 Land Lakes Boulevard, number 871 is my business mailing address. I just want to take a moment without being repetitive. There's been a lot of talk. I've been listening. I listened at the last hearing about be careful, setting precedent, things of that nature. I would like to urge the commission that the record before you is extremely clear that there's been legal error. I'd like to point your attention to page 8. That's part of your packet of the Preservation Heritage Board, where, just to be brief, Mrs. Cornell indicated that she did not think the board had a choice because they were bound by law. That is not a correct statement. That is a Heritage Preservation Board member stating on the record that she feels she literally had no choice but to say no. And that's not accurate. That's not the law. If you watch the video, with all due respect to counsel there, I don't think she intended it, but if you watch the video, she left the board with a very strong impression that they had to vote that way. Not intentional. That is error, and I need to point that out to you. There was comment about having record evidence for an appeal and to protect the record. That is extremely concerning. We went before the Heritage Preservation Board, and Mr. Sprecher noted that the building was an orphan, and that he noted the factor, I think it's prong 3 under the analysis, I think, where it talked about compatibility. Look at the adjacent properties and look what's next to it, look what's behind it, and do all that good stuff. But right here is practically, I don't want to be too exaggerating, a miscarriage of justice. That's not right. A decision was made thinking they had no other recourse. That's not right. So, number one, before you do have a choice. The evidence before you is, if you look at your map, I just happen to be looking at it. And that is the smallest, just when you have time, look at this visual picture. I cannot find a smaller rectangle in this whole historic page than that building. And in the evidence, this building is completely vacant. You have 4 walls that are almost going to fall per the engineer. They need serious structural reinforcement. And there's a roof, and many of the windows are gone. So that is a factor for you all to consider when you decide this appeal. Number one, if you want the record to reflect some criteria, number one, this building is not of historical value. There was legal error considered by the Historical Preservation Board at the time of its decision, and it's not contributing anymore. You have the awnings are gone. Many of the windows are gone. Many of the facade about the building, it's a shell. It's a small shoebox, a pipsqueak little box. If you look at the building, it's right on the corner of St. Nicholas. And if you look at the actual purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Board, it specifically says the Historic Preservation Board is to promote and perpetuate distinctive elements, which I would submit to you.
Thank you. Your time has expired.
Is not distinctive. So please consider those. Thank you.
Any other public comments on this item? Mr. Kuskouras, you have something else that you'd
I
like
just
to
wanted to
share
draw
with
it,
us?
just, the information I gave you, I just want to draw your attention to the part of the code that I relied on that gives this board the authority. If it's not, if you didn't want to, if you couldn't do it, why is it in the code? Okay, under section B, 108B, okay, of the code, okay, it talks about property that should not normally be considered for designation. We fit that criteria. If you look at 108.02, okay, where it says criteria for removal of designation, okay, that's on the, I think on the last page of the code of the packet I gave you. It says the Board of Commissioners may remove. Okay, we're not here to ask for a favor. I'm here to say that's what the code says. If you couldn't do it, why is it in the code? Thank you.
Thank you. One more time, do we have any other public comments on this item? I see a lot of people there. Anybody wants to say something? Share some more information? No? Thank you. Now, back to the commission. Commission comments.
I have a question.
Commissioner Sieber.
Thank you. Mr. Kuskouras. I was wondering if you could talk a little about the comp plan and that this was designated a historic building.
I'm sorry.
What Mrs. Proto said about the comp plan and this designation.
You want me to be more specific?
Yeah,
No, I have no comment on the comp plan.
I just wondered if you might answer her. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
We, on commission comments, Commissioner Sieber, you have any other comments that you'd like to make?
Not at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Donovan.
And we're on to commissioner comments now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, again, as I said before, I know this is a brand new meeting, but I got a tremendous amount of respect for the Greek Orthodox Church and everybody that came out and voiced their opinions tonight. I personally believe that approving this appeal would set a very bad precedent because I think the procedure is clear in the code. And the code that I'm referencing to is the same one that Mr. Kuskouras is referencing. I just interpret it differently. Specifically, Code J, or subsection J, that says a change to the status of an individual site shall be processed in the same manner as petition for designation outlined in sections C through I. And I just don't believe that petition for designation outline was met. Also, again, code enforcement will not allow the building to collapse. I don't think the decision is grant this appeal or the building's going to disintegrate or it's going to be doomed or anything like that. I mean, there's a lot of options, but code enforcement isn't going to allow that to happen. So I don't think that's a good argument, but overall, I respect the appeal and the will of the church, but I cannot grant this appeal.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Terrapini.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'll just say that I'm sorry I missed the last meeting in which this was discussed, and I'm sorry to have to rehear this tonight and bring you all back here for this discussion. I want to thank the Historic Preservation Board for their community service and their volunteerism, as well as staff. Sometimes I find that serving on certain boards, or especially the Historic Preservation Board, you can be bound within the interpretations of the code and the code of ordinances, and sometimes it doesn't allow for, in some cases, a gray area that can be further interpreted, and therefore you have this appeal process that exists for a reason, as Mr. Kuskouras said, but is also within our code for this reason. If we pass this tonight, it won't be the first time that we have granted an appeal as it relates to the Historic Preservation Board. So it's there for a reason. I definitely want to thank everyone for their input. It's never desirable or at the will of the board to see our community, whether it's one aspect of the community or another, be split. I would certainly say that there's a lot of unnecessary ugliness that has transpired throughout this application. I've been fortunate enough to travel a lot of places throughout the world where I have seen many churches, cathedrals, and like-kind monuments on one campus, in some cases taking up city blocks. And I do think that within the code, it does speak to the religious congregations having unique architectural contributions in general. So that said, I don't think that what's being presented tonight takes a negative effect or negatively impacts the historic district as it relates to what the church is proposing. So I did have some questions as it relates to the size of the bell tower and how much of the courtyard it would take up. My understanding is that, and having applied to the Historic Preservation Board before on my own behalf, there's not the renderings aren't as detailed as they would be if you were to apply for a building permit. So in some cases, it's just a conceptual drawing or a rendering that's being presented to the board. So my understanding is that when this comes back, if it's approved tonight, that it will have to conform to all of the regulations that would be set forth in our building codes to begin with, as it relates to height or dimensional criteria, setbacks, etc. That said, I am in support of the appeal tonight. I don't think that it will cause a negative. I don't think that it will be that it will add a negative architectural element to the existing area. I think it will be an added improvement to the St. Nicholas campus. And sorry if anybody's offended by that.
Thank you. Commissioner Carr?
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you all for your public comment tonight, and thank you for coming back again. I think this is by far the most attorneys we've had speak in public comment to the board, so thank you all for coming and sharing your passion on both sides. I just want to touch base with our city attorney in a public setting, and so I shared some comments last meeting as well I would like to bring back up, and I do think there's an opportunity I could count on the board, and I have an idea where it's heading. But I think there's an opportunity for the church to work with the city and the historic guidelines to come up with a compromise like I discussed last meeting, still to fall within the criteria so it can be approved by the Historic Preservation Board. I'm still stuck on the appeal aspect on which appeal was actually made. It's nothing against the church or anything along those lines, but I'm struggling with that. And so with that, I just want to talk to ask Mr. Trask, our city attorney, a couple questions. Mr. Kuskudis brought up a couple items multiple times about section 108.02, criteria for removal of designation. And then it talks about an A, that the Board of Commissioners may remove the historic district or historic, cultural, etc. Designation of the property if they meet the following criterias. And it talks about 1 and 2. If I'm clear, though, I don't think we necessarily have the backup to remove this as a historic designated property. Am I right in that?
First of all, I think that you're right. Let me just go a little bit further. The code section that Mr. Kuskudis mentioned, the 111.00, specifically provides in the last sentence of the first paragraph what needs to be included in the notice of appeal. And I'll just read it to you. The notice of appeal shall state the grounds for the appeal and a brief summary of the relief which is sought. And Mr. Kuskudis, in his 2-page letter, ended his letter with the relief that was being sought. And I just want to read that sentence. The church believes that a procedural error was made when the subject property was erroneously designated as a contributing structure in conflict with the above criteria, and therefore thereby petitions the Board of Commissioners to remove the subject property from designation as provided in 108.02 paren 2. So the information that you have before you is a request to remove the designation. With that in mind, for you to remove the designation, it needs to go back to the board that heard this original application, and that's set forth in that subparagraph J that has been referred to tonight, where it specifically requires that process to be met. And I'll read that. That's in 108.00 paren J. A change to the status of an individual site shall be processed in the same manner as a petition for designation outlined in section 108.00 paren C through I. Petitions for removal of an historic, cultural, archaeological designation shall also meet the standards in section 108.02. So there's that procedural requirement that has not been met to take the designation away. I also want to address a couple of other things that Mr. Koskoutis brought up, especially in his letter. He refers to section 108B. That has nothing to do with what you're doing tonight. That is a subsection of the part of the code that the Historic Preservation Board considers when it reviews petitions for designation. You can't separate that out from the rest of that particular code section. You can't just take one little subparagraph and apply it. I don't believe that that's appropriate. And I also want to talk to you about the code section that was referred to that says that you have the right under section 108.02, which is titled Criteria for Removal of Designation. It specifically provides the process right in the first paragraph. It says the Board of Commissioners may remove the historic, cultural, archaeological designation from a structure, site, traditional, cultural property, or district by ordinance. So, and if you continue on, it just talks about some of the criteria. So that would require you to adopt an ordinance removing the designation from the property. That section of the code, in my opinion, was for the purposes of this Board of Commissioners to decide if there was a particular property for some reason that the Board of Commissioners felt should not be designated. This gives you the opportunity, by way of adopting an ordinance through 2 public hearings, 2 readings, having the public come and discuss that particular designation, if you like, if you would consider it that. So I don't believe that that code section applies either. That doesn't, though, answer all the questions. Do you have the right to address this appeal tonight? Absolutely. One of the code sections that Mr. Koskoutis referenced, 111.00, provides in subparagraph 3, the Board of Commissioners shall conduct a public hearing, that's what we're doing tonight, at which time it may affirm, modify, or reverse the decision of the Historic Preservation Board. It doesn't give you any criteria of what you need to do there. So if the thought process tonight is to reverse what the board, the Historic Preservation Board has done, that's what you need to rely upon, that subparagraph. It would be a motion to reverse the decision of the Historic Preservation Board. But I do not think it's appropriate, nor do I think it, does your code allow you to de-designate the property. And you'll remember, that's all the church was requesting in the appeal that you've got in your packet. So I know I went around Fisher's Fence to respond to some of the questions, but I wanted to address the legal issues that have been raised tonight. Oh, and one other thing. The comment that you heard from the lawyer from the audience, that there is error as a direct result of a board member making a comment out loud at a hearing, that's absolutely not the law. The law is that if a decision is going to be appealed, it's going to be a decision appealed as the board as a whole. The individual comments of the board members is not to be taken into consideration by the court if that is ever reviewed. So I disagree with that comment that gives you the legal basis. Those are my comments on the code sections that have been cited, and I hope I gave some direction to both sides of the table here because I'm hearing lots of different comments.
Thank you, at the city attorney. So to be clear, I think the ultimate best approach would be for the church to work with the designer and the architect and also the design guidelines of the historic district and go back through the historic district approval process and take that approach instead of asking for removal of a historic designation of a property at the end of the day. Do I think it's a nice design? Absolutely. Do I think the property needs to be updated and some type of structure enhancement should be done? Absolutely. I like the design, but at the end of the day, I want to use an analogy. If I were to go into our local bank here and ask for a CD of 10%, the banker would laugh me out because CD rates are nowhere close to that. And if they were to honor it, they would be going against what their code says. And if they were to be audited, they would get in trouble. So I struggle with what the Code of Tarpon Springs says in this situation, that although I have a great respect for all of you in the audience on both sides, I don't find the area that I could be comfortable with to make that decision tonight, other than to deny where we're at. So thank you all for being here again.
Thank you. Commissioner Seibert, you want to comment?
Yes. We've heard from 4 attorneys tonight, and it seems like there are different interpretations. I listen to all of you, and I respect all of you and our city attorney. So this is very difficult, and I know that probably your next move would be to go to remove the designation if this did not pass tonight. I think I agree with Vice Mayor Terrapini. I'm not sure this is appropriately designated as a historic building, since I see that it's been changed and it's completely not the same as it used to be, and doesn't look like the other buildings surrounding it. So I agree that that we should go ahead and not remove the designation, but grant you the appeal. As far as the design guidelines, I know that when you come back to the board, we'll be making a decision on those design guidelines. So we can look at the criteria at that point. But I'm in favor of the applicant. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We have 4 attorneys here with us tonight. I'm glad we don't have to pay you guys. First of all, I want to thank all of you for being here tonight and waiting till so late to have this hearing process done. Again, for the record, I'd like to say that I am a member of the St. Nicholas Cathedral, and I was advised by the city attorney that it's not a conflict of interest for me to vote for this item. And again, as I said before, I'd like to express my gratitude to the Heritage Preservation Advisory Board for serving our community and making decisions based on the criteria that we provide them. And I'm also very thankful to our staff for their hard work. As I stated the last time that we here tonight we have a situation here tonight that we must use common sense. Must use logic and common sense. Some of the old timers that have been here forever in Tarpon Springs will remember that this building was a very popular restaurant. It was a place, not as much because it was the good food, but it was a place to see your friends. Over the years, the owner made quite a few changes. So the original building is not like it used to be years ago, but it was neglected for many years. It's my opinion that there's nothing historic about this building anymore. I don't know if it was historic because, and I'm not sure why it was on a historical building list, but we're not here to discuss that tonight. Mr. Kuskura says that this property was actually placed in error on a historic list. Could be. I think probably they just look at the whole block and they just included every building there. That's probably how they selected. But now the Greek community wants to convert this building and do something good for the community to build a chapel, a place for people to worship and to exercise the First Amendment, which guarantees the freedom of religion. That's exactly what we're asking to do. Again, I think this is an opportunity for us to use logic and common sense, and I am in favor to support this request and give them the appeal. If there's not any other comments, I will entertain the motion.
I've got a question for city staff, Mayor.
Sure, go ahead.
I don't know if Heather can answer this or Mark.
I'll let Heather.
Okay. If this application is approved, the appeal is approved tonight, what is actually going to be the next steps, or what would happen? Because my understanding is it would be over overturning the decision by the Historic Preservation Board, which denied the design and basically the whole rendition of everything that was submitted, and the Board of Commission then at this point would potentially approve it. So then at that point, do they just go and get a building permit and they're ready to go?
That's correct. You essentially are affirming the application as they was submitted, and overturning HPB's recommendations. So what you see in your packet is what you're essentially approving, based on your decision tonight. If you go forward and approve it, so yes, they would go forward to the building permit through the building permit process.
Okay, so from a design guidelines or anything along those lines, that is now not applicable. We're just looking at setbacks from a road, potentially height restrictions, potentially, and hurricane-proof windows, basically, right?
Agreed. It's your building code and the balance of the land development code outside of the heritage preservation section that would be applied.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Not a problem.
Thank you. Any other comments before we entertain a motion? I need a motion.
I move to grant the appeal and reverse the decision of the Historic Preservation Board.
Second.
The roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
No.
Commissioner Carr?
Can I just have clarification on what's being done here? Is the appeal was written to remove the historic designation of the property?
No.
Okay, that's the way the appeal was written. I just want to make sure that how the motion by Vice Mayor was made was just to overturn the decision by the historic.
Vice Mayor, would you repeat the motion?
Sure. The motion was to grant the appeal and reverse the decision of the Historic Preservation Board.
Okay.
Mr. Attorney, is there an issue with?
There's no issue with that. You're not removing the designation. The designation will still be on the property.
Okay.
It's just that you're reversing the decision of the board.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Carr?
No.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. Item 13 has been deferred, and that concludes the agenda tonight, and we go to staff comments. Police Chief?
No comments, Mayor, thank you.
City Attorney?
Just want to thank everyone for all the support that I received with regard to the family matter that you're all aware of, my son being in the hospital. I really appreciate the support and prayers that I've gotten from staff, from the commission itself, and also from the public that are listening to this on TV. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. LaCour?
Yes, I just want to remind everybody, 6 o'clock, Monday, the 30th, the meeting, the workshop, to finalize the sign code. And then as a result of tonight, we will be having a work session after the regular session of the 8th to discuss the charter issues.
Thank you. City Clerk?
Comment.
Nothing. Commissioner Carr?
I don't have any comments.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
I just have a question as it relates to the entrance for the Sunset Beach. I know that we discussed it. I don't remember it coming back. Did it come back to the board for final?
No, with the changes that was made, it's still in design to bring back to the board.
Okay, how far out do you think that is?
I can check and find out.
Okay, to me that seemed like a relatively easy, worthy project, and I'd like to try and get it going sooner than later if we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Donovan?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My only two comments. One, I just wanted to know, when is the agenda item that was pulled tonight, when is that coming back? Is it the next regular session meeting we have?
Sorry, which agenda item?
The next agenda item.
October the 8th.
Sorry, the agenda item that was pulled, that's coming back the 8th.
The 8th, next meeting.
Okay. And then also, I've just been getting some complaints from residents regarding the Riverside tennis courts, just about some lights constantly being out on one side of them. I do think work on them is being done, but can I just get like a written update on the status and plans for repairs, and just plans in general for those tennis courts? And you can just email me that at a later date.
Sure.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sieber?
Thank you. I do want to say, Tom, that I hope that your son will be okay.
Thank you.
And I've prepared a statement tonight to read to you based on what's happened recently in my life. It is with great regret that I make this statement. My daughter Michelle has been shown in a video on the news and on social media mistreating one of her dogs. I've had the opportunity to view the video, and I understand its significance. I'm quite distraught by her behavior, but she is my daughter, and I will support her getting the help that she needs for her illness. She was raised better than that and is now suffering the consequences of her behavior in the Pinellas County Jail. My family, my business, my political career, and I have been furiously attacked for actions that were not mine, nor did I have any control over them. I have had no involvement in the proceedings of Michelle's arrest, processing, or pending charges. For those of you who know me and have reached out to me, I truly appreciate your support, and I'm very grateful. To my fellow commissioners and residents, please excuse the interruption of this unfortunate event, as we must focus on our city, as I have been committed to doing for many years. Thank you.
Thank you. I have several comments that I'd like to make. Wednesday, September 25th, we have a workshop on the Healthy Hub, which is the program transportation for seniors. We'd like to invite everyone to the Recreation Center, which is located at 400 South Walton Avenue. You will hear and you learn about the services that we're providing to the seniors over 65. The program allows seniors to travel to medical appointments, to the hospital, to the pharmacy, to the grocery stores, to the community center, and to the senior information center. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Advent Health Hospital for sponsoring this program. This is a great program providing transportation to the seniors. Also, I'd like to say that on Thursday, October 3rd, we have the Sunset Concert that starts at 7 p.m. Friday, October 4th, and Saturday, October 5th, we have the First Friday and Fall Festival. That begins at 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. in downtown Tarpon Avenue. That's a great event. Also like to welcome the new business to town, the Creole Smokehouse on Tarpon Avenue. I think there's going to be a great restaurant. And with that, that concludes our regular session meeting, and it's adjourned at 6:50 p.m.
It's 9:50. 9:50. It's not 6:50, it's 9:50.
8:50.
I mean 8:50, sorry.
Excuse me, it's 8:50.
It's very, very difficult.
Yeah, I had them just in case.
I just saw them.
I didn't know if you had them. So I asked Chris to provide
Yeah,
them
sure,
to me.
I did.